Now, justice is very important to each of us. In fact, the desire to get justice is one of the most innate human needs. Let me give you an example. Imagine that Adolf Hitler had been found alive, hiding in Germany, and was brought before a judge. His crimes, in fact, took 9 long hours to be read out. All of them were laid before the judge one by one. But at the end, the judge says, "I see what you have done, Hitler. You have indeed murdered millions of people out there, but I also think you have learned your lesson. So I am going to let you go, and I'm going to let you go free." He banged the gavel and he cried, "Not guilty." Now, are you going to sit there quiet? Are you not going to protest and seek for justice for the millions of people who have been killed by him? Would you not express an outrage of emotions? Let me give you another example, perhaps something that is probably very close to us. Some of you will remember an incident that happened in our nation where the whole nation went into an uproar in 2012. A 23-year-old female physiotherapist intern was beaten, gang raped, and tortured in a private bus in which she was traveling with our male friend. Now, as a nation, we were outraged at the brutality of crime and injustice that was meted at a young girl. Thousands and thousands of protesters, especially young India, thronged at India Gate seeking for justice. But have you asked, why is it that as human beings we seek for justice? Why is it that as human beings we seek that the oppressor must be punished and the weak protected? Why is it that our blood boils every time we see injustice being done? Especially when you and I are cheated upon, lied upon, and when we become victims of nepotism, corruption, crime, and so on and so forth. Don't we all cry out for justice as Eve? The cry for justice is in our DNA. But why? Why do we cry for justice? And I think the answer is found in Genesis 1 and 27. It says, "Then God created man in his own image, imago Dei," a very central belief of the Judeo-Christian worldview, which basically means we as human beings reflect upon ourselves the character of God in our lives, the relational, the rational, and the volitional aspects, including the sense of justice, because God is just. Now, it is very interesting as you look through the scriptures, you would get to see the number of times the God of the Bible, in fact, he himself cries out for justice. When Cain killed his brother Abel, God confronts Cain and tells him, "Hey Cain, your brother's blood, Abel's blood, cries out for revenge." In short, it cries out for justice. By the way, justice in its simplest form means to set things right. Abel's blood is crying out to set things right. God, in fact, intervenes when the Israelites are oppressed by the Egyptians. And God tells Moses, "I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I've heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I'm aware of their suffering." Exodus 3 and 7. When David, the man after God's own heart, a man God loved, sins by committing adultery with Bathsheba and kills her very husband Uriah, God brings about justice by confronting David through his prophet Nathan to set things right. God, in fact, cries out for justice when the poor and the needy and the widow and the fatherless are oppressed. And minor prophets are all about God crying out for justice. God cries out for justice when the boys are sold into prostitution and girls are sold to get wine, to get drunk. Joel 3 and 3. God cries for justice when corruption and immorality abounds the city. Amos 2 and 7. Let me ask you this question one more time. Why is it that as human beings we long for moral justice to prevail? Why is it that we are outraged when we see justice happening around us? Why is it that we seek justice for crimes that happen around us in the city? It is precisely because the God we worship, the Judeo-Christian God we worship, is a just God who is zealous about justice being done. And because we are made in his image, we too reflect the nature of justice and seek for justice in our own spheres. But I must also say, something very drastically different happened with the death of the Lord Jesus Christ on the cross. Sin, which is the violation of that which was right, demanded justice. Man had committed sin and sin demanded justice. Sin called out things to be set right, and the justice of God met on the cross when penalty for sin was to be paid. God did not relent. He willfully gave his own son so that we will be set right with him. And this, of course, changed the course of action. From retributive justice that is based on punishment for wrongdoing, we moved into something that is called as the restorative justice, which tries to restore relationships. Another story that shocked the nation happened in 1999 on 22nd January, when the Australian missionary Graham Staines with his two sons Philip, then aged 10, and Timothy, then aged 7, were burned alive when they were sleeping in their van outside their home in Manoharpur, a village 250 kilometers from the state capital of Bhubaneswar. Now, retributive justice demanded that the perpetrators of the crime be punished, and exactly that's what the Lord did. Gave life imprisonment to those who did and were involved in the crime of burning the father and the two sons. But Gladys Staines, the wife of Graham Staines, later on rather chose restorative justice by forgiving the one who killed her husband and her two sons. Gladys said something very beautiful. She said, "Because of forgiveness, I hold no bitterness towards the person who killed my family. Forgiveness brought healing, which is needed everywhere from hatred and violence." It is Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, who embraced ahimsa and non-violence, who said, "An eye for an eye will leave everyone blind. An eye for an eye will leave everyone blind." Can I say this? Each of us, each one of you, have been victims of injustice at some point of your life. Injustice done to you in the family, at school, at work, and so on and so forth. But I think the way forward is not tooth for tooth or eye for an eye, but the way forward for us is the way of forgiveness. And can I say this? Forgiveness is the most difficult thing to give another person, especially when you think injustice has been done, especially when you are hurt. But the greatest example, I think, for us comes from the cross. When Jesus was scourged and left to die on the cross, instead of asking for retributive justice, he cries out, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." Father, forgive them. I'm not asking that you would punish them, but you would rather forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. May I also say this, because God is just and we are his image bearers, it calls for each one of us to stand for those who face injustices in life, to stand for those who cannot raise their voice when they face injustice. In Micah 6:8, the prophet reminds the people, what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before your God. Of course, the book of Revelation reveals the justice of God in all of its glory during the end times. But I think till then, let us stand for justice and be a voice to the voiceless, and let us not forget to forgive those who act unjustly towards us. Well, may the Lord bless each one of us, and thank you so much for giving me your hearing. Thank you.